Okay. Um, so hello. Um, Sorry for not being able to join you. I had very good intention. Uh, do you hear me well? Because I hear studio. Is it okay now? Okay, cool. Anyway, I wanted to be with all of you in Paris, but due to whole hype of Corona, my kid was not allowed to travel with me. So then I decided that we will stay in Zug, even though we heard that also we have some virus here. But I hope this is not the main topic of the conference, and that you're all enjoying your time and exchanging what is new and what are our plans for this year. So I have prepared the topic, which is definitely a new trend. And being a lawyer, I feel somehow that I want to share with all of you what is my opinion and what informations I have collected about potential legal implications of proof of stake based networks. I work as a legal counsel for Web3 Foundation for almost a year now, and it's been very dynamic and crazy, especially since I'm in the industry for almost 5 years and working only with startups. So I have some overview of the industry and opinion. And I would like to say that for sure we can somehow think that there are certain trends every year, and from ICO bubble, which brought us from some kind of FOMO to failure. This year, everything is about proof of stake. Why is it interesting? Because we are talking about passive income, and I think it's very a nice topic to dive more deeply from the legal perspective. We have here is just a short overview of what I will be talking about. So here is just a short overview of from the source takingrewards.com. I have prepared presentation maybe a few weeks ago, so maybe the data is not correct anymore. You can check yourself, because it's really growing on daily basis. Of course, everybody wants to utilize staking to earn crypto rewards, and the total market cap of all the coins that are being staked is approximately 11 or maybe even more, 12 billion, of which 8 billion tokens is being locked. Top 5 networks, they have a majority of their tokens locked, and you can see in percentages. If you visit the page, you can see, you can calculate all your potential earnings. And we have dozens of networks already available. And of course, this year, to follow up, our Polkadot is among them as well, that everybody is waiting as well. And as we all know, that Ethereum 2.0 is also coming. So today, everything is about proof of stakes, and I hope that there is something beyond staking in all this, and that people are trying to understand that if all token holders are stakers, that not only that the token will be diluted, but the network will have no long-term success, because it will not be able to attract neither businesses or developers. This is my modest opinion, but I think that we should definitely look beyond staking, because this is some kind of lifeblood of wide adoption. So maybe to think about, of course, yes, we like the idea of passive income, but this is very limited. So we can see maybe just to to compare it next year, this time, how many networks is still up and running, and how did they develop. So to understand the basic concepts in legal sense of proof of stake, we have to narrow it to be able to understand proof of work. It is definitely one of the biggest technical debates, proof of work versus proof of stake, but I'm just a lawyer, and I'm not, this is out of my scope. I advise everyone to do their homework and to do the analysis, what are the features of each, and what are the benefits of proof of the stake. One of the first coins that had proof of stake was already in 2011, I think, that it was proposed. Peercoin, I don't know if it still exists today and what is happening. But let's talk a little bit about proof of work. So one of the most, the main feature mechanism is validation of transaction blocks by volunteer army of miners. In proof of stake, we are eliminating mining, so we have to understand what is it being replaced with. And to be more abstract here, there are like different legal theories behind it and analysis. The problem is that we have so many jurisdictions and global legal prisms that it's definitely not easy assignment, so that if you expect me to be straightforward here and to tell you like things are like this and this and this is how you have to do it in order to have some legal certainty, this definitely doesn't exist. My idea is to zoom out and to somehow lead you to some abstract concepts that we can, one of the potential understanding is, I even found a term in one article, they call it on-chain fetishism. It's more like we have a lot of community members that think that blockchain is absolute and that everything starts and ends up with blockchain. It's quite a radical, and as a legal practitioner, I think this would be a topic of a separate talk, and we could definitely dive in. What does it mean, and can blockchain be a jurisdiction? What are the issues, and some kind of on-chain versus off-chain, and I mean how we humans operate and work. So definitely we cannot transcend ourselves and be completely on-chain. This we all have to understand. But still, we can look at the public blockchain, so any network, in some more abstract way, that it's on some kind of research and voluntary basis, and that it doesn't have any legal personality. And it can exist as such completely, and especially in all of our projects, which have a big tendency to show this decentralization in its full power. How much is this achievable? It's of course up to us and up to all the participants in a certain network. We can also look blockchain as a property, and then we have some more like down-to-earth correlations with a real legal system and property law. If we would look at the miners as some kind of owners of computer farms, which are lending the computing power, and in return they get some fee. But I would say that this is not so simple, and in such interpretations of blockchain, we actually have certain flaws that then it brings me to my next slide, where I have a few drawings and diagrams to be more specific. So the definition that I just said has its flaw because it's showing us that we have like centralized entity, and then that the fee goes out from blockchain as it goes to miners and between all participants. But that would mean that if there is some relationship between the blockchain and rewards, that there should be some kind of contract. But if Ethereum definitely doesn't have a legal personality, so that means that there cannot be any contract. So we can cross this down, and whoever thinks that you can have a contract with the public network, I would like to hear some arguments in favor. Why would we go that this is some contractual base? So it's the same for proof of stake, so or any kind of relations, because if the network is decentralized, if no one is having power over it or can control any activities happening, that means that we cannot create any contractual relations. And I mean, this is good news, so I would say so. We have to make distinction, as you can see, that Ethereum is not the same as Ethereum Foundation. Of course, there are legal implications on different topics, like who owns GitHub repository, are there any intellectual property rights, trademarks, etc. But this is definitely not something that belongs to the public blockchain itself. So in short, we can definitely not have contracts with networks. And this is why I put this little image of ghost, as we can say that Ethereum or any other network is a legal ghost. And I actually plan to write some article about it in more details and more precise. So you will be able then to read more once published. Talking about all these things, I didn't mention any of existing jurisdictions, because somehow I think it's first important to understand the theory that I just explained. And as many blockchain participants, they're already operating across many jurisdictions and trying to find some ways where regulations and legal frameworks are more open to the industry. And of course, we have more favorable ones or more pushy, like US, for instance. But this just means that it's up to each person to decide where do you want to operate and why are you choosing certain jurisdiction to establish your entity, because somehow everybody is trying to have some legal certainty, so therefore all projects have some entity somewhere. And many of us is here in Canton Zug, Crypto Valley, and people wondering why did we choose it and what is the situation in Switzerland. We definitely can say one of the reasons, not just political system and of Switzerland in general, but the country is so small that the dialogue exists between the industry, and it's of course they don't have to comply with the EU or other countries, so they can bring their own framework. Of course, this has also some disadvantages because they have come quite far. This new world level FATF regulations, especially travel rule. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but that means, in short, without going into some kind of legal definitions, that where the crypto goes, we follow it. So each service provider who operates with crypto has to provide the data of the person. So meaning they are trying even now to create some standards, and we already see a few participants like Binance working on it to provide solution for this protocol that is supposed to be some kind of proof of ownership of the wallet. I know that definitely one side of the industry doesn't like the idea, because that means that how far did we actually move from banks and IBAN systems that we now have crypto, which is supposed to have a direct identity behind it. But FATF is here, it's 2020, a lot of things happened in the last few years, and they will be more restrictive. All countries are obligated to implement this in very short period. And fifth anti-money laundering directive entered into force this year. So we definitely have more troubles swimming in between all these regulations, especially if you are running exchange businesses or wallet or whatever. Can be categorized that you're dealing with financial instruments. I mean, we have from the other day that Germany confirmed that Bitcoin is financial instrument. So each jurisdiction is a story for itself. So my advice is what could be like to conclude on this topic is to find as many as possible arguments in favor and against when choosing your own jurisdiction for operations, because you have to have some long-term view, how you see your project developing, where is majority of participants that you work with, what are the potential like liabilities for all of them, tax implications. Switzerland is very expensive, definitely, so people go to offshores as well, who are trying to invite, but also in Malta you can see that political situation influence change of prime minister, and new one is not so open for blockchain projects, so maybe the good days of Malta have also ended. But this is why you have legal advisors and to help you navigate, to follow up with the news and what is happening in each jurisdictions, and definitely you can move from each all the time. There is no law that is preventing you, that you have to stay where you initiated, and you can establish as many entities as you want with any kind of relationship. So actually options are unlimited, at least in my view and my personal experience. But to understand, the bottom line is that for blockchain, for now, we will never have a legal certainty, and there will always be some kind of overlapping gray area. This is why I choose this picture, so that my answer is like a gray. There is no clear view, definitely. But one of the jurisdictions that I want to say a little bit more, because they're already discussing proof of stake. There is a Proof of Stake Alliance who is in some close dialogue with the SEC, and they're trying to determine what are the requirements to be able to safely operate the network, or staking, actually not network, but staking as a service under security regulations. So we have a situation in staking that we can hold our own asset, so we don't have to involve third party as custodian. We can have option that we delegate our validation rights, or we can choose that we will delegate our validation rights and also our assets for to the third party, who will be then providing staking as a service, and then we can share the reward. This is the most important case for US regulators now, because practically someone is doing staking on your behalf. And we have already a few institutions interested in that and offering. And I think more and more exchanges will be involved in this, as a new trend, of course, especially this year when the rewards are still on a very interesting percentage. So somehow it brings us to basic definitions of what is security. I mean, I'm sure you have all discussed it, and it was a hot topic of 2017 during ICO hype. Utility versus security, and who we test, and how this all works. We test, I don't know if you ever read about it or any historical informations that you research. It's from 1964, I think, so, or 46, yeah. It's almost 70 years old, and it was a case of some Florida-based businesses which bought some land, and then they resell it and lease it back, and it was something about growing oranges. But today, no more oranges, we have tokens. And we have to understand this, that tokens are definitely a novelty for all these security market. And why these regulations are so restrictive has also some historical view. And it brings us back to early 1930s, after the crash of stock market. And when US regulators created this framework, which is still valid today, but it's very simple and straightforward. It's not so complex. It's more like that every investor has to have basic information about what is he investing into. And this is how somehow things are looked at. What who test has to determine is what is actually the substance of some agreement that exists. So it is not about how we will, what kind of language and wording we will use, because especially in crypto, we like to put things in different frames and calling it everything, but not investment. But unfortunately, I can't see your hands now, and how many people would raise their hands for I really am not interested in earning something from staking my tokens. And is it like investment or not? Of course, there is incentive to run the network, but I wouldn't vote that it's like 99% of people just interested in that. So the definition is of securities here, it enumerates a lot of different, but the red one, it's investment contract. And this one is used whenever it doesn't fit to anywhere else. And SEC has very simple rule. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's a duck. So as I said earlier, we cannot hide it, because they will, the court, when it comes to that level, it will look into the economic background of the agreement. In staking, we have interesting perspective, because in situation when I'm only delegating my validation rights, then practically I'm not risking and facing any financial loss. The only thing that can happen is that I don't earn reward if my validator is slashed. But my coins are still with me, so that means that I will not lose anything. And this is one of the reasons why we can argue and defend that it is not investment contract. But if you are in situations with more bonded networks like Cosmos, where you actually are, you have to put your tokens, then if you can lose them, then it's a completely different situation, because one of the definitions how US regulators view on the investment agreement, that there has to be a possibility of financial loss. So here we are coming a bit closer to the definition of investment agreement. Of course, everything is open, and it will be definitely case by case. There is no rules. Each network has different features, and it will offer different solutions. But I think there is plenty of information available online that each of us can dive into and explore the projects, who is behind it, how does it work, stability, etc. And this is how you choose the one that will bring you a reward that you will be satisfied with. If you can even support it like on some kind of philosophical level, even better, if you believe in success. But we will definitely see how the story continues this year or even next one. There is also more legal topic about licensing of staking as a service operators. But I think they will also try to fight it because it will be very complex and long-lasting procedures if they will have to get licensed, and especially in US with the Banking Secrecy Act that you have to get licensed as a money service business in each state. It will be definitely more expensive. That will induce that the fee is higher, so probably we as a potential clients, users, participants will be less interested to choose that someone does the staking on our behalf. At least this is some kind of a logic that I have behind it. So yes, this is in short everything. What I managed to find, there is really not many resources, at least not from a legal world coming on this yet. I think we will see how it develops. And that's it. Enjoy your time still at ECC, and if you have any legal troubleshootings, you can always contact me. Yeah, and thanks. I don't know if there is like a questions or something. They didn't tell me in technical team whether
is there any
we have this part included, but maybe someone comes closer and tells me.
Okay.